You've just spent millions of dollars on a brand new piece of pharmaceutical manufacturing equipment. The physical machine looks great, but here you cannot simply plug it in, power it up, and start running batches. Before a single product can be made, every valve, sensor, and software loop has to go through a strict, multi-stage validation process. If a component fails to operate exactly as specified during production, the resulting compliance failures can trigger massive recalls. This sequential flowchart maps out the required equipment lifecycle. It builds from the initial design qualification, moves through the FAT and SAT stages, and finally progresses into installation, operational, and performance qualification. Let's isolate the FAT and SAT stages. These two specific tests are the critical bridge. They take the theoretical design you agreed upon and test it against operational reality. If you don't fully understand the exact differences in timing and purpose between these two tests, you risk shipping unverified equipment. Nailing these stages saves hundreds of thousands of dollars in downstream delays. The left column details the factory acceptance test. This design check takes place entirely at the manufacturer's site before shipment. The purpose of this visit is to verify the physical machine on the vendor's floor perfectly matches your agreed-upon user requirement specifications and design qualification. To get that verification, your engineers execute a rigorous set of activities. They conduct thorough visual inspections, test the PLC and HMI software logic, and simulate process conditions to confirm the mechanical outputs behave exactly as drafted. Doing this right requires flying your engineering and quality teams out to the vendor's facility for days or even weeks. That upfront travel budget can look heavy to project managers trying to keep early costs down. But you spend that travel budget to secure a signed FAT report. It is the only way to force the manufacturer to correct misaligned parts and software errors while the machine is still in their shop. So what actually happens if a project manager rushes the FAT to save some travel money or skips certain test scripts to hit a preliminary shipment deadline? This quadrant chart plots the financial impact of defect discovery over time. Catching a design flaw at the vendor site is cheap, but discovering a failure on your own plant floor causes the cost of on-site redesigns to jump exponentially, destroying your project timelines. The FAT is the final moment you hold total leverage over the manufacturer. Once the equipment arrives at your loading dock, getting core structural or software defects fixed becomes significantly harder. The FAT functions as a proactive shield, stopping a multi-million-dollar machine from ever leaving the manufacturer if it doesn't actually work. Now let's look at the right column, detailing the site acceptance test. The equipment has arrived at your facility. This test is your environmental reality check. The SAT occurs strictly post-installation. The design has already been proven. Now you confirm that the equipment integrates flawlessly into your specific real-world plant environment. You are checking physical alignment on your floors. You are verifying that local utility connections, like your purified water and HVAC systems, feed into the machine correctly. You are also testing all safety interlocks and emergency stops under actual site conditions. The responsibility dynamic shifts heavily right here. During the FAT, the vendor drove the testing. Now, the vendor steps back into a supporting role, and your client team takes ownership to ensure your facility utilities were prepped exactly as required. An approved SAT report clears the way for the validation cycle to move forward. It serves as the formal prerequisite, proving the system is installed safely and is ready for IQ, OQ, and PQ testing. A common frustration on project teams happens right at this transition. Why would a machine that passed every single test during its FAT suddenly fail its SAT upon arrival? 9 times out of 10, a failed SAT is not a core machine failure. It is a failure of your facility's utilities. If your plant's chilled water loop can't maintain the pressure that the machine's design assumes, the system will fail its integration tests. Project managers who rely on the SAT to catch core functional errors always get burned. The SAT cannot test the limits of the machine. It can only test the machine within the limits of your facility. The FAT proves the machine works in a vacuum. The SAT proves the machine can operate amidst the chaos of your specific plant utilities. Let's put these two phases into a direct head-to-head comparison so the boundaries are perfectly clear. This comparison matrix lays it out. Looking at the top 2 rows, you see the contrast in location and purpose. pre-shipment design verification at the manufacturer's site versus post-setup installation checks at the user's site. The third row highlights that shift in operational responsibility. The FAT is led by the vendor with the client observing. The SAT is owned by the client and your QA team, with the vendor providing support. And they generate two distinct outputs. The FAT report gives you the green light to approve shipment. The SAT report gives you the green light to begin final qualification. It's a direct, necessary timeline transition, moving linearly from factory approval over to site qualification. These tests are never redundant. They are geographically and functionally distinct stages of one unified validation continuum. Executives often look at the sheer volume of test scripts required for FAT and SAT and wonder if all this documentation is just excessive bureaucratic overhead. It is the exact opposite. This strict, granular documentation is the cheapest insurance policy you can buy against crippling manufacturing downtime or an audit failure. This layout shows the primary global guidelines, 21 CFR Part 11, EU GMP, and WHO GMP. The data integrity established during your factory and site tests forms the mandatory foundation to comply with all of these regulations. If an inspector finds missing signatures or incomplete test scripts from either of these early phases, your entire downstream validation process becomes instantly vulnerable to scrutiny. Robust protocols provide the required paper trail for governing regulatory bodies, proving to an inspector exactly what your engineers already know: the machine works. If you are a QA engineer stepping into this process, treat the FAT as your ultimate safety net. Use it to catch every single vendor misinterpretation before it gets loaded onto a truck. If you are the project manager, treat the SAT as the final proof of your own internal facility readiness. It is your chance to verify your utility hookups before formal validation begins. Keep this distinction as your anchor. The FAT ensures the equipment is built right. The SAT ensures it works right on site. If you need to make sharper decisions regarding your equipment qualification and validation strategies, hit the subscribe button. We consistently break down complex GMP compliance frameworks into clear, actionable training. See you in the next video.